Hello, everybody, and welcome to Boss Talks. This is episode 78, and we have a great guest today, Elizabeth Braman. She is with Revolution RE. She's the CEO with them and one of the founders, obviously, too. Well, I guess not obviously, but yes, she is. And she is someone that's been in the industry for roughly 2 decades, both on the capital investment side of real estate, but now as a supplier and all things data. She is actually also a lawyer. So we'll get into how she went from going to law school to multifamily data SaaS company. Personally, I'm like, I don't understand how that road works. She's like, it seems normal. So we'll get into all of that. But thanks for joining us today. We're gonna learn a lot about the use of data and how you can leverage it for your benefit, both as a supplier and as a property management company when it comes to what's going on those communities. And she's kind of a disruptor of sorts in the sense of what she's doing is getting data and getting it to more people without all those red tapes and, well, high costs, we'll say. So definitely reach out to her if you need help with that. And we'll get into that more. But before we get there, I'm, again, Evan Happel. I'm the director of marketing with Community Boss, and we have a great SaaS solution of our own in the prop tech space of multifamily, where you can manage all the physical spaces of your community, whether that's your parking, your amenities, or mapping. We can really just navigate and help make your community come to life and very useful. So if you need any help with that, let me know. We can help you generate revenue and better value for your community and just a better experience for your residents. So I would love to help you and point you in the right direction there. But today it's about Elizabeth. So let's bring her to the show. All right.
Hi,
Elizabeth,
Evan.
thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and happy Valentine's Day.
Yes, you too. And
Yay.
your home base and company home base, I guess, is in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Uh, Phoenix, but the company is pretty cross country right now. We've got our
Remote,
majority of our
everybody.
team. Well, most of the developers are in DC, so they're co-located, and then we've got Chicago and Seattle,
Okay.
uh, all over. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. We are in Seattle
Mm,
as well. It's our home base, and
yeah,
most of our people are up here. But you are currently in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
I am, obviously.
Yeah.
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 Spending the day.
Yeah.
Got some
Which
family
is
here.
which is nice. It makes sense. Like the heat index comparatively to Phoenix
Oh
is different.
yeah. Yes. Yes. It's a lot it's beautiful here and the weather's a little cooler and it's super close. So yes.
Okay. Well, I'll have to ask you more about that. I just learned that you have a house there, and I am actually somewhat in the future maybe interested in relocating there. Who knows? I don't know.
Okay.
We visited,
We'll talk.
we
Yeah.
took a trip, and affordability wise compared to up here in Seattle is quite substantial. So,
Yes. That is true. Fair enough.
but enough about that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks so much for being here. Before we get into like your background and your company and all that, I'd just like to ask a few quick questions to get
Yeah.
things rolling.
Please.
All right. So, when it comes to your personal and professional life, how is it
Mhm.
that you like to build community in the more social sense?
Social sense. Well, I think food is always a good uh way to bring people together. So that's kind of why I love to bake. I used to bring
Okay.
back in the pre remote days. I was always bringing baked goods into the office. Had some e-team meetings that would um, involve my baked goods, but I think that's a great way of building community. I think I love all the stuff that's been going on in the multifamily space, using technology to really bring people together. I think I'm not a social media person. I still find that I'm pretty old school when it comes to connecting with people, but I think there's lots of interesting ways that social media and communities online can help you find your tribe, your peeps, your connections with people who have like and common interests. So I think technology is more of an enhancer than a replacer for
Yeah,
things like that. But
sure.
in-person connection, there's really nothing that beats it.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah. The social media for me has been good for a business application more than
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Yeah.
And I think now I'm just trying to set the boundaries of that because it can still suck your life.
Uh-huh. Well, there's nothing good about like the whole FOMO thing. Like when you see someone presenting a idealized version of their life and you kind of
Right.
look and go, oh, everyone else has all these, and that's not healthy. It's not
Yeah.
good. But it is nice to be able to
Yeah.
stay connected with people like, your great aunt who you
Yeah.
probably wouldn't talk to otherwise. So
Right.
there's
Yeah.
pluses and minuses.
Right. When you look at your life and man, my life is a train wreck, but everybody else's life is amazing.
Your life is real. Everyone else lives some kind of idealized Disney version of life.
Right.
Everything's perfect.
Right.
Mm,
That's true.
mm,
That is true. All right.
mm,
So I guess similar, I mean, you already brought up food, but let's go beyond baking. When it
mhm.
comes to hospitality and using food to kind of facilitate hospitality,
Uh,
what would you make somebody if you had them over for dinner?
oh gosh. Well, I'm not the best cook. So
So you're a baker.
I'm a baker. I'm a pure baker. I love baking things, but when it comes to cooking, my cooking's kind of lousy. So what would I make them? Uh, Probably taken. No, I think
Oh, that's fine. People
that's
people
my
do that, say that all the time. They're
yeah.
like, well, I would take them to a restaurant. So
Oh, I like eating at home though. So I bring in food. I love Asian food, and I haven't even tried to endeavor to cook Asian food, but so I might make some pasta because that's really uh, easy to make and makes you look good because it's hard to mess up
right.
pasta. So
Yeah.
so a little carbs before your carbs. So it's like a full carb
There
meal
you go. And then
when you come
you'd
to my house.
finish it up with some baking. What would you bake?
Yeah, I'm a cookie person over a cake person, so I do enjoy cakes. I love there's a pastry called Queen Amman, which is like it's spelled like Kuchen but it's Queen Amman,
Okay.
and it's amazing. And there's a lot of great bakeries in Albuquerque. Burke Bakehouse, which is like James Beard award-winning bakery here. There's some incredible bakeries, so I will put my Queen Amman recipe. I'm going to put it in my next newsletter. So if anyone's watching
Okay.
this and signs up for our newsletter, you'll get an extra special recipe this month.
Nice. Yeah, and you did
Yeah,
mention that baking is a big deal for you and that you do try to incorporate it into your
I do.
business.
I
So yeah,
do.
plug that
My
a little bit.
newsletter.
What is
Yeah,
your newsletter? What's covered in your newsletter besides baking? It's a
yeah.
bonus,
I did.
obviously, but
It's not just a baking newsletter. It's our so we do a monthly newsletter at Revolution RE, and it's more it's intended to be more informative and all things, all my favorite things. So multifamily data, I usually write a blog. We have a list of our favorites. So my book I'm reading, a podcast I'm listening to. I've had two of your episodes I've featured in the newsletter.
thank you.
Usually I get a good quote if I see something I like, but it's a way to talk about building community. The newsletter is a good way of kind of sharing our personality of the company and what it's like kind of to work with us and be a part of our community and join the revolution and all that good stuff. HubSpot also, by the by, you and I were talking about this beforehand, has the best newsletter. If anyone is super into newsletters,
Yeah.
theirs is actually really good. I steal some stuff from them every now and then. They've got great articles.
Yeah. They are pretty good at doing the content and
Yeah.
driving the whole down the funnel, and they
Yeah.
definitely live out what they preach, right? So
Yeah.
that's very, it's a good
So much
example.
good content. It is a good example. We all aspire to be. You can take a lot of in entrepreneurism. What is it like? It's a sincere form of flattery to
Right. Copy people.
replicate, copy, and steal ideas. Uh, Proper attribution. The lawyer in me says proper attribution. If you drop a footnote, you're all good as
Got
long as
it.
you.
Yeah, I'll have to pick your brain on that because there's a few people that have
Mhm.
copied our company. So
Oh snap! Yeah, no. Every company ends up looking very different, though. That's what I learned being one of several hundred companies in the crowdfunding space. Early days was like, yeah, they're people can copy you. Execution is key, and
yeah,
things tend to evolve and look very, very different as you progress as a company. Just necessarily, the market kind of pushes you.
right. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, and then final question:
Hmm.
when it comes to your caffeinated beverage of choice, what's your go-to?
Oh, wow. That would have been that's the hardest question to ask because I have it's like I don't want to hurt any of my caffeinated beverages feelings. I have so many favorites. Um Obviously coffee, Diet Coke, and I have a cinnamon tea that I drink with milk or cream that's so good. It's like
Oh, okay.
Harley Sons. It's really,
So
really
if you
good.
had coffee, what would you have? Would it be just black coffee, or do you have like a special
Either
drink you like?
black or some cream, a latte,
Okay,
hot latte, always hot, not a nice coffee person, and definitely not like a frappuccino. I don't, I
too
don't want a
sweet.
milkshake. Yeah,
Yeah,
they really are
yeah,
ridiculously sweet, and they've gotten more so.
yeah. I tend to go with a darker or blacker coffee.
Yeah, yeah, I like a
I'll
dark
try
roast.
different roasts and stuff, but
Mm,
I
Mix
don't
it
put a
up.
lot in it. Yeah. Occasionally I get a
Hmm.
sweet drink from a place nearby. That's not usually Starbucks.
Okay.
Um, but somehow they make the sweet not be overwhelming, even though I know it's a lot of sugar.
Yeah. Starbucks went like they jumped the shark on like they used to have the best seasonal like hot coffees, and then I don't know, maybe it's just me. I can't even drink like a pumpkin
Mhm.
spice latte now. It's just like oof,
Yeah.
maybe five less pumps of pumpkin spice
Yeah, that's
latte.
true.
Yeah,
I
but it's
sometimes will
so
say,
sweet.
"Hey, just one pump. I don't need
One
all
pump.
the
Hmm.
extras."
It's extra. Yeah.
Yeah, super extra. All right. Well,
Hmm.
thank you for answering. These are super important questions, and I
They
appreciate
are. We
your
got
candor.
through them.
All right. So, Elizabeth, again, you've been in the industry roughly 20 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
You went to school to be a lawyer, and at what point, like, what kind of law did you study, and what's
Hmm.
kind of your journey pre maybe multifamily real estate?
Sure. So, and it is a good segue. So I started, did my law degree at George Washington and did a JD MBA, and then got into technology law. So I was representing tech companies and did that for a couple years, but I always wanted to go in house, which is why I did the MBA and ended up starting a software company, which was a SaaS platform that my current dev team, so one of my product guys and my CTO were from, and a couple of my engineers were from my first startup, which we sold to a public company. We bootstrapped it because, not because we were disciplined, probably more because we didn't know that as a DC based startup, you could raise capital. I think it was just like it didn't occur to us. We self funded it and let it grow organically, which isn't a bad thing. I've done private equity backed, venture backed, and bootstrap companies, and they all have kind of their pluses and minuses, but it was a good experience and something I appreciate that opportunity to start a company and do kind of like the quintessential startup experience. It wasn't in a garage, it was above the restaurant, but it was close. It was like, you know, really scrappy, really scrappy.
And that was that first company?
That was our first, it was an e-learning SaaS platform, and it was my first experience in SaaS, and really learned how SaaS platforms work. And I did everything that wasn't development, but got to work with the developers. And I was a really good QA tester because I can break things like none other. I'm really good at it.
Nice.
Figuring out how to break it. But I left that company, and a friend of mine asked me to do some real estate transaction work for her on the legal side, and ended up doing the financing. And that was it. I fell in love with real estate and capital markets, just all portions of the cap stack. Really enjoyed it, and started doing commercial real estate lending. Got my CCIM, which is kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with CCIM. It's Certified Commercial Investment Member, and so it's kind of like a master's for commercial real estate, but a lot of it is financial analysis, because I think people sometimes forget that real estate is like, it's a investment vehicle, it's a financial product in its own way. It's um, something that you're obviously trying to get maximize returns. And so in order to do that, a lot of the CCIM analysis was, do I buy versus rent, or modeling financial cash flows and the like. So it was a great experience to get that, because I felt like I was coming into the industry. Not, it wasn't my first job, so it felt like I needed to kind of push my fast forward my career. So I used CCIM to kind of learn what I didn't know, and spent a good chunk of my life doing lending, and started a platform after the downturn called Ready Cap, which is now Ready Capital. And that was private equity backed. That company is now public. So they did a merger, and now it's publicly traded. So that was great experience. Different startup experience there. Wasn't really like go from a bootstrap startup to a private equity backed startup. It was a very different thing. And then I left and went to Realty Mogul, which joined their Series A, like just as they were kind of growing. So I think I was number 6 or something like that. And I was there for a good chunk of time before
Nice.
leaving to start this.
All right. So in
So
this
see,
one,
it's not that
are you
off.
so are you did you guys start this self-funded, bootstrapped, or did you get funding to start
We
Revolution
had
RE?
raised, but we didn't raise to start it. I was at Realty Mogul, and I was working on some of the technology that we ended up spinning off and selling to Hunt, and that kind of was both informed the problem that we're solving, or working on solving at Revolution, which is that there's a lot of holes in the data sets in the industry. And I was very curious as to why it was so hard when you've got the world's largest asset class. You've got a third of the country rents their housing. It's just this massive industry, and yet like very little is known about operations at properties, financials, like how do you benchmark one property to another. Little is known about the tenants, like how do you give them an exceptional experience when you don't know who they are, aren't pushing for retention. Lots of things that I felt like were big question marks as to like why there weren't better insights around it. And that kind of led me down the rabbit hole that is where I am today.
Yeah. Well, I would love any insights you have on all that. It Sounds very interesting to me, actually.
Mhm.
So, when it comes to retention and things like that, based around data that you've analyzed, what is it that you find uh, has the biggest effect?
On retention.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's very specific to the property. I think that there's oftentimes, um, and some companies are doing some really interesting stuff with sentiment analysis, but I think a lot of companies or real estate companies um, don't know why their tenants are moving out, and so we track some of those. At least reported reasons why someone's moving out. Is it cost? It could be that it's too expensive. It could be that they're moving to a new job. It could be that they don't like the level of service that they're receiving at the property. You know, their manager isn't being responsive, or the work orders are taking too long. So there's some interesting things that when you're looking at the data, um, with enough of it in the right shape, in the right format, in the right place, you can start to run predictive analytics around, is this tenant more likely to leave, more likely to stay? And then based on that, start to look at, well, what's my cost to acquire a new resident, cost to lose a tenant, how long is the average days on market, cost to turn a unit, um, all of these things that oftentimes don't, and then of course the premium on new leases, if there is a premium, or maybe rents have gone down versus what the in place rent is, or the renewal rent would be. So all of these data points kind of create a picture
Hmm.
and inform how a manager should respond to lease expirations, and sometimes they just don't have that information at their fingertips to really make informed decisions about whether they should be pushing for a resident to stay, or whether or not there's a high likelihood that resident will stay.
Gotcha. That's
Well,
interesting. So, do you do you find that you work with or against or in competition with, like, what Satisfax and like um, Jay Turner and stuff, or are you guys like complementary?
yeah, no, way more complimentary. I mean, we're taking data from a variety of different places, and it could be a Jay Turner report, it could be market analysis. It's really creating a more holistic picture at the property and at the portfolio to help inform both owners as to how their properties are doing, managers as to opportunities for improvement, or to model, if they've got properties that are doing really well, how do you kind of manage up your properties that aren't doing as well? Um, Opportunities that surface from looking at large numbers of properties, and seeing how the good ones are operating and the not as good ones are operating, using market data to see how impactful that is. So there's many data sets out there that can help to create a better picture of operations and performance at the property, and performance and market level.
Yeah, I'm sure our data could enhance that as well.
Mhm. Absolutely, for sure. Parking, I mean, it's one of the, on our dashboard, we have an expense, um, dashboard that kind of shows trending, and, ancillary income. Parking is usually one of, the additional revenue drivers, and obviously that impacts values at the property. So for sure, it's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll talk about that more later.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, well, thanks for answering that. And so, when
Mhm.
it comes to where you're at with Revolution RE, how long you guys been, I guess, operating as a
Mhm.
company, and kind of where you at in the stage of your startup
Yeah.
journey, you know? So yeah, good. Just let me know where you guys are
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. The journey never ends. I say still feels early-ish. We started or launched the product 2021. So that was kind of our first onboarding of client properties, and we've got over 100,000 units have been
Okay.
onboarded to date. Um, we've had we have clients that have one, two, three property management systems, five, six, seven property management companies that we're pulling data from for them to see holistically. Um, so raised in end of 2020, and then again kind of through 2022. So we'll go out for another round later this year, and that's why I think we're still fairly early stage in terms of um, there's a lot for us to do.
Yeah.
There is a very deep market, and we gather a lot of data sets. So I think we've got a long road ahead of us. Um, not worried of running out of features and tickets and
Yeah.
product direction.
And so for what you guys do, is there really not another company that's bringing it all together like that?
There are companies that are definitely doing similar stuff. I think we all will end up looking very different. Like we built
Mm,
a canonical financial model that aggregates financials to automate the process for owners who have different managers with different account trees. So if you want to have all your financials combined for fund level reporting, benchmarking, comparative analysis, budget, pro forma, that our financial model does some really cool and interesting stuff there. So I think that's kind of one of our key differentiators. We pull in a lot of data sets, so marketing, work orders, resident leasing. A lot of our clients are prop tech companies as well. So we're kind of a middleware. We have clients that are using us for onboarding or to get customer insights, creating kind of deeper analysis of their clients and their clients' portfolios. We have property management and ownership groups that use us for reporting and dashboards, kind of BI visualization. So there's a lot of use cases as well, but it's really, we're an ETL. We're kind of like BI is a front end visualization, could be Power BI or Tableau or Domo. The back end is kind of, we're pulling from the primary data sources, multiple primary data sources. Could be CRM, could be PMS, could be a client's own database, wherever data is stored, and then putting it into a common, consistent format so that they can do analysis, whether it's using it for AI or machine learning data models, or pushing it into a data warehouse for queries, or using in a BI tool. It's kind of lots of different end user applications.
gotcha. And the data, aggregating the data, getting the data, you as a lawyer have figured out ways to get the data without being a huge killer of
Yeah,
financial.
I, I don't know if it's being a lawyer. I think it was
Maybe a
more,
little bit.
yeah, I think I had my own preferences as to how I wanted to, but it was informed also just by the shape of the data. So, if you look at Power BI, um, Microsoft is not integrating with every single PMS, right? Like they're not an integration partner. There's a reason for that, because Power BI is not generating anything that it wants to push back into a property management system. It is purely a visualization front end. We're more of a extract and transform component. So we're pulling from, could be a database, could be reports, could be any data source, and then transform. This is where I kind of use my real estate bias, because if I was having someone explain this to me, and I did many years ago, someone was trying to explain to me as a real estate person, like, why is this data so messy? And it's like, okay, we know Excel. You can't open a Word document in Excel. And okay, so that makes sense. You got to transform it into a common, consistent format. And even once things are in Excel, if you're trying to do any kind of filtering or sorting, you still can't have New York and NY and have that be one data point. Even if it is the same thing, Excel isn't figuring out that you want it to be New York. It's treating it as two different things. So you have three analysts, and one does NY and one does N period Y period, and another one does New York. You're going to end up having to somehow take all three of those spreadsheets and convert them into a consistent format in order to see how many properties you have in New York. So that to me, I was like, God, how do you do that? How would you do that? It's magic. The engineers are very smart. They think we're the ones that are like, you guys and your multiple definitions for the same things. And we're the ones that are unique in snowflakes. We like to have occupancy, have different ways of calculating things. Engineers are more elegant and precise. They like to have one, set way of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, I personally run into this all the time. Our current, our data sets, they come from various places. Like we use ALN for some stuff for apartments and things, and then we just have forms that are filled out by prospects, right? So we have those two things that might be in the same space or get combined or whatever. And then when I go to make a report, whether that's in HubSpot or Google Sheets or whatever, I find exactly what you're saying, like New York, NY, or New York spelled out or whatever, and it creates separate data sets because of that. And I have to go in and clean it all up, but it's all manual by me.
Yes. It's annoying. You're like, oh, I wish that we had just ahead of time force functioned clients to have a pull down where they had to pick New York, right? And that's why structured data is like so much easier. The problem with doing it, it makes sense when it's something like 50 states, right? Because no one's going to get mad if you force them to use MN instead of Minnesota. But when it comes to a lot of the more dimensioned or definitionally challenged things, that's where it becomes a problem when you're talking about site visits. Like, what's a site visit? Well, they may all be called site visit, but if one system is counting them every time you go out and have a site visit, whereas another one is only counting it once, now you got a problem because all site visits are not equal.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does the system know the difference?
So it doesn't. It's not like magic. I wish it was. It does not like magically know. So you have to make decisions ahead of time in your own infrastructure and then set rules and then say to your customers, like, this is how we define site visits. And so if a client wants to include or exclude something, that becomes something that they would have to either use our definition or modify it, because you can always slice and dice data. So, if the system permits, if there's a way of getting to that underlying calculation. It's why we look for raw data or the most basic data, which is why APIs are also sometimes challenging. Because sometimes when you're looking at bidirectional data, you can sometimes get calculated data, and we're always pushing to get the underlying data points as opposed to the calculations, because it's super challenging to reverse kind of calculate how did someone get to this particular output without knowing what your inputs are or when they were calculated. So timing is a bear as well.
Yeah. What I've run into is like if you're tracking data about usage of space, like your amenities, for instance, everybody calls their amenities different things.
Mm-hmm.
You got this person that has like a fitness studio. This person has a yoga studio. They're probably the same. Like,
oh yeah, yeah.
And that's just a small example. It goes from there, just crazy.
Yeah. There's over 350 different amenities in Chicago that were used. We were kind of doing a little analysis on it. It's like, so that's why you use canonicals. And so some people will say like canonicals, like you pick your data points. So we had 1 million different rows of financials that were mapping to about 88 different financial rows. And people go, oh, but what if I need to have, and this is just for purposes of bundling the insights so that you can do comparative analysis and benchmarking. So we may not have all of the different, I always use the example, lunch with Bob. That's like always like a category that I think of. Oh, that's really it's meals and entertainment, but people have on their financial reports these really granular expense items that someone at a property somewhere used once. You don't need it. It's because there's 400, 500, 600 different rows of financial data at a property that benchmarking becomes hard, because you can't compare lunch with Bob with lunch with Karen. Like, you have to bundle them into something that is more meaningful. The same thing with amenities. 350, how do you know what your premium is on, chrome awnings? Like, there's one property that has it. So like, how do you benchmark it, or what is the significance? You can't tell with any kind of meaningful analysis whether that gets a premium in rents, because if only one property has it, like it doesn't, you can't really pull it apart and say, okay. But if you have pool and you have 500 properties that all have a pool and 500 that don't, you can glean from that properties that have a pool may get a premium. So that's why kind of bundling things into smaller groupings makes it easier to then do any kind of meaningful analysis.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I'm trying to do what you're saying with our paid parking and amenity data. And I've had to combine lots of data, again, manually.
Yeah. Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah, because there's parking revenue, and then there's
Yeah.
parking expenses, and some of it, is broken down into so many different parking subcategories that to look at them each individually is not as helpful as people think. It's fine if it's on your GL and you just want to like drill down into it, but when looking at it for any kind of meaningful analysis, you want to kind of roll it up a bit.
Yeah. Well, for me, what I'm trying to determine is if there's any correlation between like something like, they use enforcement, they have certain meters, we like to call them, for their paid parking, and that's usually like certain amount of free parking, certain hours it's this price, certain hours it's this price, all those different things. Every property is different in how they do it, but there's certain properties that are doing it really well, and there's other properties that aren't doing it as well. And so we want to assess, why are they doing it so well, and why are they not doing it so well?
Oh, that's interesting. And what's hard about parking is it's such a supply and demand thing. So like, how much does it impact the ratios of available total units to tenants,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and they have a certain number of, some communities just don't have enough parking
Yeah.
to allow for guest parking. um but then, the ones that we have, they obviously do, whether they're a parking structure or garden style and just an open lot or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really, for all things parking, enforcement is key, because if there's no fear that I'm going to be checked and found out to be, breaking violating a rule or not paying or whatever, and my car might get towed or whatever, people will just not pay, or they won't
Yeah.
uh, abide by the rules or whatever. But I'm just trying to like slice and dice the data to see what the correlations are.
Well, that's where it's so interesting because, yeah, if you had enough data or enough properties and enough of these kind of data points, you can start to see what's statistically significant and what's the most impactful. So is it having enforcement? Is it seasonality? Is it, the ratio of units, parking units to residents or units at the property? Like, how are
Seasonality,
all these things?
definitely, especially in like we have some condo communities that are heavily resort, so like
Uh-huh.
on a resort area and used more like
Mm-hmm.
a short-term rental.
Mm-hmm.
uh During the summer months, super high revenue, and then it drops off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and location, obviously. In
Yeah.
certain markets, it's like, yeah, you're not gonna get any, outdoor parking revenue in Boston in the middle of winter. Um,
Yeah. Right.
no one wants that spot, but you can jack up your indoor parking, get some, premiums there. So,
Yeah.
that's, what do they say? All real estate is local. You have
Yeah.
to kind of take your data sets and then adjust for market specific impacts.
Yeah. But I mean, this all goes back to, data is interesting. Like, there's so
I
much to
think
learn
so.
from data, and decisions can be made, but obviously it needs to be brought together in a meaningful way. Like, you can't,
Yeah.
otherwise it's just numbers, and it's an eye chart, and
In a
you just
vacuum.
go like,
Yeah.
whatever. It's just a lot
Yeah.
of
You can
information.
skew numbers pretty readily if you don't have either uh, a, a full viewpoint or if you're looking selectively at information. It can absolutely be misrepresented or misconstrued based on how you choose to present it. I think what I find interesting is, real estate operators, they know their KPIs, they know their metrics. What we hear from our clients over and over is that they want it presented to them in a way that helps them to quickly kind of separate the noise from what matters. And how do you get to the things that are the most impactful in your portfolio as quickly as possible, and drill down and really get into kind of into the weeds, into the things that are uh, the things you can either impact the most or that matter the most. Things that have issues that you want to surface. Those are the things that data can really provide kind of meaningful context, and also present in a way that helps you not to let things fall between the cracks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much data now.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that can be noise, right?
Yeah.
But it also, I mean, look, the last 12, 24 months in AI, people think it's really buzzy, and it is. And there's a reason why it's so buzzy. It's because people are now having tangible applications of large language models, and their use cases are just mind-blowing. But to use these tools, you really do need to have good data inputs. And anyone who's ever done a chat GPT search and gotten just garbage response knows it's because the data in there is either old or it's garbage. They need training, they need good data, they need clean data sets. But it's kind of like, at least I've heard from enough people, and I tend to agree, like the holy grail of real estate would be, you just want to be able to query something and say, what's this market trending to? What am I getting as my best revenue sources in the Northeast? Like, these are things that are still fairly challenging for real estate operators to have to kind of pull together from their data sets. But if it's in a space that makes it queryable, and if it's in a shape that makes it clean, you can absolutely get to those applications sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a good number of people that are using you guys, and I'm sure appreciate the cleanup that you do. And there's a few people that they actually recommended you to me, and that was, I think it was Savannah Wheeler, whom uses you guys for their system, right?
Yeah. So we found that a lot of prop tech companies, it's either kind of early stage where they want to get to market fast and they need certain data points from their customers. And so we help them to onboard property management companies or real estate ownership groups where, to have the data points that they need to fuel their technology. So we're kind of either acting for early stage as an onboarding engine, or some larger prop tech or service providers use us to supplement their data set. So if they're providing a service or a product that their clients love, but they want to enhance it with more insights, that's another place where we started working with bigger companies that want to expand their offering to their clients with larger data sets. So that's been fun as well to see all these amazing applications. We're just acting kind of as the data pipe for these companies so that they can get to their customers and provide them better products and services.
Yeah, that's cool. And what was interesting when I was talking to you is part of the way you get the data. I mean, you really helped us understand, like, the data, it could come from a property management software, but it's like a community has the right to access to the data, but it's a backup usually that they're getting access to. It's not like necessarily live data or whatever, so that they can, make decisions based on the data and whatnot. And that's kind of where you get the data from, is kind of the backup, right?
We've got different ways depending on the property management company, the number of properties. There's really no one right way of doing it. We're only pulling data.
Yeah.
We're not
Right. You're not pushing
data.
into, yeah, right. Right.
And that's, APIs are amazing, and we have APIs with some of the PMSs. It's not that it's a bad method necessarily.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't get the breadth of data, or you don't get the underlying data points. We don't push anything into the PMSs, and we don't necessarily need things to be real time. So we're pulling everything the night before, whether it is a backup or reports or some form of export. Like most of the BI tools, we're just pulling kind of bulk data, then we're transforming it, we're putting it into a common consistent format, and then pushing it out to either prop tech companies for use in their tools, clients who want to use it in their own BI, via our BI. It really is kind of that's like the last piece is what we do with the data.
So you take this ball of gook and turn it into something useful.
Gooky data. And it's also how many properties, like, if you pull a full backup, you have more of the properties. You may only want one or two properties, so you might use a different method. That kind of usually that informs the method is how many properties you're wanting to secure, how much historic data. That's the nice thing about BI tools is that they give you the ability to kind of go back in time if the data is there and kind of create a history, which is great for trending and comparative analysis year over year type of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like that stuff. I kind of like data. I don't know. I don't know if I always admit it, but I do. I'm like an introvert, and if I get sucked into a spreadsheet, like it's hard to pull me out.
Yeah. And I play around with our BI front end all the time because it's drag and drop, so you can kind of like, we just added changing colors, so I'm like color coding everything. I'm like, oh, rainbow dashboards. I want to see. But yeah, you can brand them, and we added some. I finally was like, let's do some pretty stuff. Add more pictures.
So you
it's
do
like
have
no
your,
functionality.
Yeah, but you do have kind of like your own BI tool.
Yeah, we built our own. And the reason why we built it was we looked at all these other kind of off the shelf tools. They were not multifamily specific. And so ours is very much for the non-technical real estate operator who wants to be able to build out dashboards and reports in the way that they want. So we have all these templates. We have all these a library of reports, a library of dashboards, but real estate operators are real specific and they want to have everything look their own way. So it's usually just a starting point, and then you iterate from what's available and kind of make it your own. So it gives you, the intent is you want to have day one value. You want to kick it off like right away, give me my data, show me something of value, and then tweak it, make it your own kind of as you get more comfortable using the system.
Okay. And then I think the other person that mentioned you was Carrie Davis with Fortress. Okay, so how is it that they use your solution, or do they? And I'm not sure how that relationship works.
Well, we're talking to Fortress, and I had a mutual client, so we were pulling in some financial stuff, but we're looking at, they have a more open approach. So we have clients that have different property management companies. We're agnostic to the property management system, so we're not tied to or specific to one property management system. We pull in from whatever the client's source PMS is, or their property manager's source PMS, and then we're presenting it in a common, consistent format. So Carrie's got a really cool platform in that most of the PMSs that are out there have been on the market for a while, let's say. Technology, I always like the fact that we are so say young or new to market. The benefit is that newer technology, just by the nature of it being newer, things have gone so fast from a technology advancement standpoint. Like 10-year-old tech is still like super old. 20-year-old, 30-year-old tech, like it's there's a lot of technical debt. Of course, those companies, if they've been around that long, have a much bigger budget. They are buying newer companies or grandfathering some of their older technology, but there is a benefit to kind of starting from scratch in the last, however many years. So Fortress has a great platform, definitely was built out of a property management mindset. And, you know, I see Carrie all the time at conferences, and we're thrilled to work with them with our joint clients.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you guys are both, in a sense, doing something different, blazing a new path a little bit. And so that's cool. And, she was a guest on Boss Talks, just like
Yeah,
you are today. You're both
yeah,
definitely bosses, and I appreciate
that's
you being here and contributing your knowledge and experience to the show, because, you know, talking about data doesn't necessarily interest everybody, but I think it's something that
I
needs
don't
to
see
be
why not.
something that we yeah, needs to
I
be
don't get
something that
that.
we
Yeah,
we
we want
talk
to make it
about and
easy.
figure out.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It shouldn't be a daunting thing. It should be actionable insights that make our everyone's lives better and lets them do the things that they're good at, which are, you know, operating properties. So we're excited to have the opportunity to support the industry and work with people to elevate their performance and serve their customers better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then before we end, the last thing we haven't talked about is your kids. And
Oh,
you were just mentioning how much you love spending time with them and doing things. So if you
yeah.
want to give a shout out to them in case they watch later, or if there's
I
anything you want to
will.
just talk about being a mom.
Yeah, no, I Walker and James and um, my guys love technology. So we just went and took them to Star Wars exhibit at Disney, which is incredible. If you have not seen it, it is worth going, even if you're not a big Star Wars person. But it is kind of fun to be building technology that's kind of, I get to point to my kids and say, someday what we're building makes that possible. We're like, you know, many early steps along the way of that kind of future where all the technology becomes sci-fi. But
Right.
it's a lot of fun. They really enjoy it a lot. So that's what I tell them mom does.
Awesome. Is there anything special
Yeah.
you guys do for Valentine's Day as a family?
Yeah, chocolate cake. Um,
Chocolate cake. So do you make
yeah,
a cake?
it's like a heart. It's a heart-shaped chocolate cake. I got like the yeah. So
Okay.
that's Valentine's Day is chocolate cake day.
Nice.
Almost every day is chocolate cake day. I
Do you
really
have
like
a
chocolate cake.
solid chocolate cake recipe that you make?
Yes, New York Times chocolate cake is
New York
incredible. They've got
Times.
yeah. If you like dark chocolate, it's very, very good. New York Times, any recipe is a winner.
So is it
They're
a
some
very
of the best.
moist and just okay.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want that one.
Yeah. Go for that one. It's a good one. I'll send it to you.
Nice.
And thank you. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. You have Valentine's Day plans?
I mean, as a family, we usually do a few things together. We're a household that my wife's really big on decorating for holidays.
Mm,
And I help do the decorating, but
mhm.
she's the driver of it. I'm
Okay.
I'm the participant.
Do you dress
Um,
as Cupid
I don't
this
I
year?
don't do
No.
that, but but we have three boys, and so today
Mm,
we did a little decorations and just some, just simple little, treats and stuff.
nice.
And then
It's good.
tonight, I don't know if you guys have Papa Murphy's, but they have a heart-shaped pizza, and so we're gonna
Mm,
probably go get a heart-shaped pizza.
yeah. And hopefully now follow that up with a heart-shaped cake or
I mean, that is
chocolate.
enticing.
Yeah,
I'll have to figure
it
that
is.
out.
Yeah. You're too far away. I'd bring one over. Well,
That
thank
would be
you.
awesome.
I know, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
good stuff.
All right. Well,
Well, thank
Elizabeth,
you.
thank you so much again for being on Boss Talks and
Hmm.
being our boss 78.
Hmm.
And just
78.
like she jumped in and shared her
Mm,
passions about data and her family
mm,
and baking, you too can be a boss on Boss Talks. So if you have something you want to share about and as to why you are a boss, I'd love to know more about that. So reach out to me. We have an open platform. I really want any and all people to feel welcome to be on the show. So till next week when we do an episode 79, this has been Boss Talks, and thanks for watching.
Thank you. Pleasure. Take care, guys.